What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Grab Your Torch with Caleb and Joel. We're here to recap episode 11 of Survivor 48, third to last episode. And last season, we had a treat with, Operation Italy, that final seven. This episode, we did not get a treat, unfortunately. And we saw a
Wow.
very consensus Mary Boot. What were your thoughts?
This was a whole lot of nothing. I we were talking about it a little before, but I don't really blame the editing. I think this is just a steamroll of the season, and I think this is kind of what you get when you kind of get an old school season like this.
Yeah,
I think it's impressive what Joe and Eva are doing, specifically like creating this culture that like really values this. Which like I think in any other season they get like immediately voted out. I am so shocked Joe only has one vote against them. Like I don't know how this is happening. And
Eva has
honestly,
none.
yeah, I think there's like a genuine argument of like if these two make it to the end of the game and one of them wins, they're arguably one of the best duos in Survivor history.
For sure. And they're already proving to be a really great duo. They have a chokehold on the rest of the players. Everyone is scared to make a move against them. I'm not sure why, because, judging by the jury, like just like looking at them, you can't really tell much from them, but you can tell like they're they're not really necessarily rooting for Joe and Eva either. So it's like I think they would for sure win, but and if both of them are at the end, they would just roast whoever the other person was that didn't take them out, and roast all the people at Ponderosa for not taking them out because, they were the biggest threats the entire time. And they all said it, like Mitch knew this, Camille knows this, obviously. And then, you know, we heard numerous amounts from Kyle today about how this was the right thing to do. And we also heard from Cheyenne as well to some extent. I think Cheyenne's edit in this episode kind of helped me know that it wasn't gonna be Joe tonight, just because he was so unsure. He didn't really ever seem fully on board with it at this moment in time. He was like, when he was pretty revealing when he said, like, I think I could win against them. Which I don't think that's a true take, and I don't think it's worth taking that
Oh,
risk either, because you could have a much better outcome if you did take them out. So I think a lot of people just have bad reads on the season overall and on how the jury's perception is, different things like that. I'm not sure what it will look like going forward. I think there will, like we keep saying this, but there's definitely going to be a mix up next week. Um, I'm seeing it coming. I feel like it's got to happen. If Mitch goes next week, we can, or Camilla, it's kind of over. I feel like for how the season is as a whole.
I agree. This has just been a steamroll in so many ways. I think the edit today really was like because a part of me last episode was like, dang, like this was a really bad episode for Joe. And then then I saw like people talk about it and are like, he got all this negative content, but it didn't matter because he won immunity,
Right.
Like and I think Survivors really kind of pushed that there's no perfect winner. Like every winner has like some level of like something wrong happened. And maybe that's happening here, but I don't know, man. It seems like this was like the shot. No idol was played, no safety without power. It was just you had the shot and you didn't take it.
Yeah.
And for example, like obviously you could blame shaking. I actually think Kyle, it's not the worst move in the world to vote out Mary here because it keeps him in the middle at the final six where now Camille has like no moves except like to work with him, which I do think is smart. But also like this is your shot. Like if
Right.
Joe gets past the final six, it's like it's he's raps. He's making it to at least the final four.
Yeah. Does this confirm like Mitch being a zero vote finalist to you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It was like I don't know. Mitch's edit is just falling off a cliff. It's just
Well, he hasn't done anything in the game strategically, like not a single thing. And we saw last week with him being like, "Yeah, I want to make a move. This is not the time." This week we didn't really hear from him at all about like making
that's
moves
what
in the
cued
game.
me of like this might not be Joe.
It's Yeah, that's one of the things. I think most of the episode I pretty much knew it wasn't Joe. I held on to hope, but I knew that it was probably just going to be Mary, just based on what we've seen. And then just everything in this episode didn't matter at all. Like, there's so much groundwork being laid because we've talked about this same storyline back to back episodes. It's kind of reminding me of 46 when we had the back to back like Banu episodes where like
Yeah.
Banu was gonna go home the entire time and then he didn't because Randy got medevaced and so we had to go through the exact same thing the next week. It feels a little bit like that. And that was just it's hard to compare to Banu, but it was
No,
it's still just hard to watch because it's like, okay, we're talking about this move repeatedly. It's the whole storyline of the entire episode. There wasn't really much to anything else. We had a journey that didn't matter at all. It was the least impactful journey I think I've watched. Like if this isn't a sign for production, just stop them altogether. Like I don't know what is. Like even if someone else got that, you know, journey advantage, I don't think it would have changed anything, just based on what's happening. We still would have had, the same people continue on in the game. I just don't know. We'll see what happens in the last couple episodes, but I don't think these last two episodes can save the whole season.
yeah, I think the journey specifically, I did. There are like honestly some really funny moments this episode. This is a
Oh my
very, and we'll get to that moment later. Um,
God.
but I think this episode like was low key funny. I think Joe like first off the whole thing with rewards. Well, like I think Eva going on the journey for all the people saying that the season's rigged for Eva. I totally get that with her last advantage, but this one it's like if anything it was rigged against her. It was like a 6 out of 7 shot that went to someone that like could have used the advantage because
Right.
she had to beat all of them. Like, there's no one else it could have been used for. And so the fact that she got it was just like, okay. But it's unfortunate. I do like that Mary's like what was it? It was like Shaheen or Kyle was like, does anyone like want to go? And Mary's like, yeah. And everyone's like, well,
I want to go. Yeah.
yeah, I do too. Yeah, let's go to rocks. Which I found funny. Also, this journey was low key like not that hard. Like,
No, I think that would just be a fun immunity challenge in general. Like that we've seen those kind of things before where they've had to stack tiles with their feet and stuff like
mhm.
that. But this was kind of a different twist to that a little bit. I
I
think it would be fun if they actually did have to go to 8 levels or whatever for an
mhm.
immunity challenge, but they used it for the
I,
wrong thing.
I
The challenge itself was fun, but it just didn't matter at all. I didn't care about it. They could have cut this whole journey out of the episode. It would have changed anything about it. Like it
I
just wasted time.
I did want to ask you something because I have seen this and I saw it in the episode too, and I was like, wait. Basically, like when she knocked over the stack, like there's still time left,
Right.
and everyone's like, "Hey, shouldn't she have lost her vote?" First off, I don't think that matters. I think Mary was going to go home regardless, even if Eva didn't have her vote. Second off, I'm like, I think in those times, like, I think production knows like when you're done,
Yeah.
sort of deal. And I'm sure if you look back on other seasons, you could see it. So I just want to point that out.
I don't
Um,
think it's a big deal at all. Like people are getting mad at that. I think it's dumb to get mad at that.
yeah. L Survivor fans, guys, lock in.
Just lock in, just
I
ride the
know.
ship. It's gonna
I
be
will
over
say,
soon.
Sophie Clark, um, iconically had a season that was very much like she was purposely not letting people make big moves because it wasn't good for her. And she's been talked a lot about how like this season's actually like not that bad because they're making like Joe and Eva are making like the best move every single time. And obviously, it's not good for us, the Survivor fans watching, but like, I think that's one way to look at it as well. But I think the immunity challenge also had some really fun moments.
Yeah, it's a good challenge in general. What did Joe spell out at first?
What got fun betrayal, but he spelled betrayal wrong.
Yeah, got fun betrayal. Yeah, that was really funny. Um, he spelled betrayal wrong. That was just not even coherent
It's like
at
everyone's
all
like,
either.
what?
Yeah. And then the
Kyle
challenge
gave you.
itself was dramatic, it had a dramatic ending too, with Joe flipping the piece.
Yeah,
You know,
definitely send me a bin.
that made, at least the last 20 minutes bearable to watch because we would have known what was going to happen if he did win
Oh yeah,
immunity, regardless. So I think, going forward, it's in everyone's best interest outside of Joe and Eva, obviously, to vote them out. Eva's pretty safe up until then. She has her idol, her safety without power is now expired, I believe. So she can't
yeah.
use that anymore. So she only has this idol left, which Star, why did you give that to her? Please, like it
Dude,
was
here here I was flashback to the clip of me saying that like this was not a good idea and people were overthinking it. I totally thought it was just an emotional decision. It was not like I
right.
get like I totally get it, but we saw that in this season that people are scared to go after Eva because not only she's with Joe, but she has a public idol.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, Star. I don't know. No, I do think like retroactively it probably did help Star a lot to build trust and all that, but I don't
But
know.
apparently in like exit interviews and stuff, Eva was targeting Star right after that happened
Oh.
anyway. So
Well,
I think it was just a bad move regardless. And I don't know. I don't want to just like complain about the season as a whole because there's, the pre-merge was great in my opinion. We had
yeah.
a lot of really fun moments, had a swap. Um, I do want to talk a little bit though. Like in the preseason, Jeff was really hyping up this season as like one of the best that production enjoyed, lots of blindsides. I mean, there's the Thomas one, and I guess you could count the crazy tribal in episode 3, but I don't really think that was impactful at all. Um, we've also had this storyline going through the whole season with Kyle and Camilla, like, oh my gosh, we're a secret alliance. I hope nobody finds out about us. We're getting to the point where Camilla's on the chopping block. You know, the the numbers keep dwindling. I don't know what timing they're waiting for specifically to make moves. But if this is not it, I don't know what is. I think in their best interest, they have like their Siva 3 people with them two and Mitch go to the end. I think that would be really smart for their game because I think Shaim is probably really good at speaking. He's a debate professor. I think he could do well in the final tribal. And then obviously, even and Joe played a better game than anyone else there. They've, you know, created the culture of the tribe. They made sure that no one would turn on them. And to this point, they've been the most effective like duo because everyone knows about them being a duo and no one's done anything about it. So with Kyle and Camille being a secret alliance, it doesn't matter at all because they're secret about it and they haven't done any moves.
Yeah, like who cares if it's secret if nothing's happening? Now, like for Kyle, this has been like I think this relationship has benefited Kyle way more than it benefited Camilla. Even though it has benefited Camilla, like without a doubt, like Camilla would be gone without Kyle. But I think Kyle's in a spot where like if you look at like the final 6 numbers, like there's no combination where Kyle goes out. Like he's safe with Camilla and Mitch. He's safe with Joe. He's good with Shaheen. It would take like Eva just randomly targeting him for any momentum to start. So I think like in that way, like I get why Mary is gone.
Right.
But I do think that this season is really kind of like we're kind of getting to the point where it's like, is it just Joe? Like, is he just like not a perfect winner, but one that just gets to the end, wins probably 5 immunities because there's no way he gets there without an immunity next round or the round after. And like he gets to the end, he's like, "Hey, I won all these immunities. I played the game I wanted. I said I'd play. I brought Eva here. I brought Shaheen here. I did what I said I was gonna do."
Right.
Because like I fear Shaheen. Whenever you see this in Survivor, someone's like, "I think I could beat them." That uh, unless you're talking about heroes versus villains, it is not a good track record.
Right.
And so that confessional made me really worried about Shaheen, especially after
I
the
am
setup
too.
of him keeping Mary. They could
I,
take out Joe.
I think, I say Joe and Eva. Like if it's not Joe and Eva, it's only Joe. I feel like they'll if they're going to the end, they'll be to the end together, most likely. And I think Joe wins in that scenario like 9 times out of 10. So outside of that, I think the biggest threats are Kyle and then Camilla, probably in third. But it would take a lot for Camilla to win at this point, just because she has to make sure she's sitting right next to the right people. If Kyle and Camilla are together in the end, I think Kyle takes the win because he was able to play both sides, and Camilla could only play from the bottom side. Um, but I do think Kyle's definitely, second in the running. Just looking at it from a gameplay perspective, not necessarily what I think is going to happen. I do think Kyle's going to win at this point, but I think, Joe's definitely the front runner still.
Yeah, he might. It's kind of one of those like things where it's like Joe is either winning or he's like the big bad boss, where Kyle's kind of been set up of like I have to make a hard choice and I don't want to make a hard choice. I have this emotional connection with Joe. and we're gonna see if that emotional connection, if he can have it in him to cut it off, because it's been set up he's either gonna pick Joe or Camilla, this episode specifically, and he keeps pushing the camp, and
Yeah.
hopefully he does it because he just will not beat Joe. I like, especially if like I think specifically if they're there together, it is because Kyle like allowed it to happen, and that's the only way. Because if not, I think Kyle like has easily played like as good of a game as Joe. Like Joe's just played like a very classic
And
like
Joe's been more upfront about it too. Like he's like what you
yeah
said, when he gets to the end, he's just gonna be like, I did what I said I was gonna do. And his game speaks for itself. Whereas Kyle's is could be more attributed to him going along with Joe than him having his own game. And I think that's what would happen if Kyle makes it to the end.
yeah. But let's talk about possibly the best moment of the season. Caleb, do it with me now. The
Oh my gosh.
incredible.
This is so funny, bro.
All the people that hated David this season better give their apologies. This guy's one of the best casting decisions
Why does
we've
bro have
had.
to or a farm? Oh my gosh. And then Star trying to stifle her laugh in the background too. It's just so funny. There you go. He's
Incredible.
he's got it.
It's just absolutely nuts that like Mary goes home and you just I just can't. What are we doing? There is no need to mute like that. And
It's so funny.
like first off, I don't know how that is like allowed.
I
Like
know.
I think you're allowed to do that.
I'm glad
Um
that they are though.
yeah.
I'm glad that
And
he was able to do that because that
doing
was
it for
the best
Mary,
moment of the entire episode for sure.
dude, that is like so iconic.
It's so funny. I can't wait to see him at Final Tribal Council. I just want to see
Yeah.
him unleash. It's gonna be
I
so funny.
I know there's zero shot he votes for Joe. Zero shot he like votes for a lot of these people. I don't know
Yeah,
who. I think he was really hoping Mary would get there. Obviously he's him and her like such good friends. Who knows? They might
right.
be dating post show. Rumors have it.
Hmm.
But I don't know. I that part is just so funny. Um, but here we are. What were your thoughts on Mary this season?
I think Mary played, as well as she could from the bottom. She had a successful shot in the dark play, which was good. I don't think that's really a knock to her game necessarily. But she made it past that. She navigated her, swap tribe pretty well. But when it came to the post merge, she wasn't able really to ever rally the troops together. And I think her biggest downfall in the game was trying to do too much with David when she was able to get into the alliance. Because everyone else seemed pretty chill with it until she started like directing what to do in the game. And I think that's what kind of caused her to be ostracized by first they took out David to do so. And then I think after that, Mary was screwed unless she could pull something together. And because of how the season's been played out, I think, she doesn't have a really big shot to avoid that. So I think she was really fun in the pre-merge to watch. And I think she just kind of fizzled out post-merge. She made some bad moves. Was a little too outspoken at the post merge after aligning with David. And that's what ultimately led to her downfall.
I agree. I think she definitely like she did a lot of strategies that like I think the Survivor community is like, oh, I would do that. Like with her and Shay, I think their relationship was great. But her like just pretending to have an idol by just relaxing, I thought was like a really cool like attempt, like
Yeah.
it worked out ultimately. But I think her hitting a shot in the dark was fun. And I think this episode was cool. She definitely didn't like sit on her hands. We got a call back to banana etiquette this episode, which was fun. Um,
It's like 15 year anniversary of that too. So
oh really?
I think so.
Wow.
I think
Um,
that's part of the reason why they included
Probably.
that.
But I think her like kind of getting in Joe's head a little was fun, even though I mean it was never gonna do anything. We really just got to see Shaheen get like mad about it, which
Yeah.
was I actually really love that confessional. I love how like Shaheen's a very good confessionalist in my eyes. But yeah, Mary never had a shot of winning. I think she got like she was in such a tough position with like Say and Cedric going home, like them not even necessarily like trusting her. David immediately like she was just losing allies left and right, and the momentum was just like too much. Where you're at the final six with no way to maneuver, like you're dead in the water. And I do appreciate her trying, and I think she's a pretty good character for the most part. Brought a lot to the season, but ultimately didn't have much strategically.
Yeah. That's probably as much as we can eulogize for Mary. I enjoyed her being on the cast. No more Vula members left in the game. We're only down to the other two tribes, and we'll see what happens next week. What are your predictions?
My predictions, it looks like Kyle and Camilla are really gonna try to get that move going. I'm predicting maybe like a fake idol, something where they're like he's got beads, stuff like that. We got to put on our acting, but like most previews, like it usually doesn't matter.
No,
Um, I
I don't
don't
care
think
about the preview.
I don't think that'll even matter. I think I'm gonna put down a crazy theory. I don't know if this is true, but I think there's a world where the final four is that swap tribe. Kyle, Kyle and Camilla and Joe and Shaheen. And for me, that would make a lot of sense. Where Eva goes out this round, maybe Joe wins immunity, and like something happens, Eva goes home with an idol. Because we haven't gotten like no talk about the idol.
Right,
As her just being like, I'm playing it at five. And then Mitch goes at five. And then because like Shaheen and Joe don't think like they're a duo. And next thing you know, like we have like it would make sense that they make the final four. It makes sense why they put so much focus on this. Um, and I could see a world where like Joe wins immunity, takes Shaheen, or Shaheen takes Joe, something like that. And like Joe just like makes it to the end and we get like a very competitive final three. I think if Mitch and Eva goes home, we have like the best case scenario at Final Tribal, where like we have zero idea who's actually going to pull this off.
right. I'd agree with that, but I'd also say, looking at the edit of the season, we've seen back-to-back episodes of like, okay, we got to take out Joe. We got to take out Joe. And I feel like if we don't get payoff of that, the edit's really misleading. But if we do get payoff of that, the edits, where does that leave us after that? I think it makes it more predictable next week if Joe does go home, just because that's been set up for so long. I think it's impossible for me to think that Kyle and Camille are not going to work together, especially after this week. I think that proved
Yeah.
that they're going to stick together no matter what. It's the clash of the duos. We have Joe and Eva versus Kyle and Camilla. Who can come out on top? And funnily enough, Shine's in the middle, and Mitch doesn't really have a choice. He has to go with Kyle and Camilla probably.
Mhm.
So I don't know what will happen there. Shine's been with Joe and Eva the entire time as well. And I don't see him as a winner at all after this week. I think he just really took a down week. I don't think Mitch is gonna win. I don't think Eva's gonna win. So I think it's really only up to Joe, Collar, Camille at this point. Um, in my opinion, and that's saying something because I had Shaheen at the top the last couple weeks of just looking at the edit slash looking at the positions in the game and different things like that. But I'm curious to see what happens. Survivor, Survivor. Whether or not we have a couple boring episodes in a row or not. And I think we can get a exciting finale. And I still think there's a good chance for a tie this season as well.
True. I don't know. I feel like most seasons have like the moment, and I'm really hoping the moment wasn't the Thomas boot. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
so I'm hoping for something electric, maybe like rocks somehow. That'd be fun. But ultimately, I agree. This is like I do appreciate the editing of like you could argue like most of these people are gonna win. Like I think if like Joe doesn't like if Joe keeps up this momentum of like we got to take out Joe and we don't take out Joe,
Yeah.
like
It's just,
pretty
oh my
much
God.
it's rats.
Yeah.
But if you take out Joe next episode, And now you're like, oh, now we're in the final five with,
without
Eva
Joe.
and Idol. Like, you can't take out Eva. Someone has to go.
I think if Joe goes, we have a really exciting final five.
I agree.
I think
And
I'll be really excited to watch the finale at that point. But
I,
it really depends on, next episode. I think that's what it all comes down to.
yeah, and I think maybe the production thing, like my whole basis of like why production likes this season so much is because they love the winner. And I think you're at the final six where you can argue any of them would be like production's favorite to win. Because obviously Joe loves Camilo, or not Joe. Joe probably does love Camilo, but Jeff loves Camilo. We got to see that at be like, oh my gosh, like, did you ever think you would do this?
Right.
I am Jeff's favorite archetype is like the big buff guys, and we got three of them. Mitch has a great story, and like so does Eva. I can see like any of them being spin to that. So I hope it's a tie because Jeff, you know, that tie is one of Jeff's favorite moments of Survivor. So maybe that's why.
Yeah, that could be the reason. And then it'd be very similar Ghost Island at that point with a duo running the whole season.
I'd be like, oh no way, I just watched Ghost Island twice. Oh, but yeah,
Without the interesting callbacks to older seasons.
true. Do you think we're getting the vote next episode or finale
What do you mean?
for Survivor 50?
It'll probably be the finale, to be
Yeah,
honest, for the last one. And we'll also get our season 49 preview, which will be, I guess, interesting. I don't know. I
yeah.
don't
All
really
you
care that
Survivor
much
fans
about 49.
begging for 49. We've been on it.
We're ready. We're
Hey,
here.
we've been ready.
I think, as far as the podcast is concerned, we'll probably take a break from doing winter rankings this week, and I think it'd be fun to do it next week after this
Yeah,
penultimate
ready
episode
for finale.
and talk about, what we think is going to happen for the finale. And kind of do like a prediction of 5-1 kind of thing we could do as well, which would be cool to do. But besides that, I don't have much else to say about the episode, do you?
Nothing for me.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're on YouTube, please give it a like to the video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed. And leave a comment just your thoughts on the season. I know it's been boring, I guess, to us, and maybe you disagree with us and you've enjoyed it a lot. So comment below if you think that, or just your thoughts in general. And then if you'd like to listen to us in podcast form, you can find us wherever you listen to podcasts at Grab Your Torch. So just thank you so much for being a part of this community, and we'll be back next week to talk about episode 12.
See ya.